We're recording.
Hi.
Hi, and welcome to Thoughts on Talks with Reverend Mike and Malayna. That's me. And we're in our respective homes.
It's filter week 2.
Yeah. And we're in different parts of the valley, although we're still broadcasting from our Center for Spiritual Living in Granada Hills. Like in spirit, we're broadcasting from there. And virtually. Yeah.
Yes, because it's virtually impossible not to be one.
That's pretty good. You just thought of that, huh?
I think I'll have to use that.
Yes, definitely. Well, you just did, because this is recording and we're going to share it with other humans soon. So how did it feel to do a Sunday talk to an empty house?
Yeah, that was pretty trippy.
Yeah, it would be. Was it hard to like pull up the energy to?
What did it look like? I don't know.
No,
sometimes I feel excited, but people say, "Gee, you don't look very excited."
Oh, no, I thought it was good. I love that it felt normal. Like it just felt like everything was happening as it should, and I just happened to be home. Because, especially, I think because Ken, Francis, and Jason Goldstein were there.
Right.
And Reverend Nancy was there too, so it looked like a community still, and everything.
Well, that was definitely the intention.
Yes, and so it was just the 4 of you and Mike and Evan in the sound booth.
Yeah, and in fact, we moved. We broke down half of the effort in the sound room and moved the PC and the joystick, which is the camera, the video portion.
Mm-hmm.
We moved that outside of the room to give those guys a little more safety.
6 feet of separation.
6 feet, and then they're also sitting at 90 degrees from each other, so they're not blowing their funk on each other.
Although we're affirming that they're both perfectly healthy and well. Otherwise,
they're blowing more spunk than funk.
I'm not sure that's good.
Well, maybe not.
Maybe not, especially for our friends watching in other countries. That has other meanings.
Oh.
But hopefully they're not watching.
Or
we'll get letters.
Hey, well, you know what they say about press.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay. Bad press.
And it's kind of hard to, lose my job if nobody's there. I thought, wow, I could have, this would be the time to actually slip. If I had a slip of the tongue, maybe it wouldn't matter as much.
Well, there is.
Going, oh.
Well, it depends on how many people are actually watching this. I mean, if it's just you and me, which it feels like sometimes, we can get away with anything pretty much. So you have your slides available for us this week.
Yes, right? I do.
Well, let's take a look at those, because normally I would steal your notes off the podium at the end of a Sunday service and prepare my thoughts on your talks, but I wasn't there in person. So
I didn't send them to you like I said I was going to last week.
That's okay. Life has been busy despite being at home.
Weird little bit.
Yeah. All right. Building an effective me and love streamers. I like that. Yeah,
well, that's ripped off from Agape.
I like that I was actually picturing streamers and hearts, and I was like, oh, I like that. So it's good to, you're not really ripping it off.
Yeah.
Sharing.
All right, good.
That's what I say.
So
look at the numerology of that too. 22, 20, 20.
I know, that's weird, huh?
Mm-hmm. Those are good numbers. I think it points to duality. And when you put them all together, it points to foundation, if I'm remembering my numerology correctly.
All right.
And my metaphysical number interpretation.
Well, that sounds good. Because,
Okay, let's just go with that.
well, 22 divided by 2 is 11.
11, which is also a magic number in numerology.
It's also a prime number.
Ooh. Yeah, 11 and 22 are two really kind of powerful numbers in numerology. So the moments when I look at the clock and it's 11:11 or 11:22, it's like, okay, it's a moment of synchronicity acknowledged. At least that's how I interpret it.
Yeah.
So what's the next slide? Or did you want to say something about it?
No, I just realized that I should probably have my talk while we're talking, because I don't remember what I have coming up here, but let's see.
Let's let it unfold.
Oh yeah, so I was talking about how people probably feel like they're living in some kind of cosmic whack-a-mole right now, between the coronavirus and stuff going on in the economy and being stuck in your house and not having all the provisions when you go shopping, and not being able to meet with family and friends. And so
I related when you said it was like being attacked from all sides kind of sense. But whack-a-mole, that is just wacky.
So when I saw this, I thought, oh, this must be a couple of Aussies.
Yeah.
Right? Looks like something a couple of Aussies would do.
Yeah.
Now this Team Edge is actually a Christian fun zone thing, and they do all kinds of wacky things that have physical violence included in them, like this.
So it's like the modern PC version of gladiator games.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's soften the biblical for modern day people.
Right. So, but that was just going off of stills. But anyway, I like the picture.
I do too. I like the plants, actually.
And it does seem like it's, wherever you stick your head up,
Someone's ready with the inflatable mallet.
Yes.
At least inflatable doesn't look like it would hurt too much.
They have that kind of Chip and Dale quality, like from the Disney cartoons.
Yeah.
The two chipmunks, particularly this fellow.
Well, his nose is colored. Did you do that? Or was it part of the image?
That's part of the image. So.
I wonder if that's how they tell who's playing the mole and who's playing the whack.
Whoever doesn't have the mallet.
I think that's an easier way to tell.
And they actually have a game, right? So kids it's a big inflatable game like those.
Oh, like the bounce houses?
Yeah. So they can pop up and, I don't know, it's kind of crazy.
It is.
Maybe it is an Aussie thing.
Maybe.
So then I was talking about something else, but I can't remember what it was. Do you?
About whack-a-mole?
Yeah, I went from that to some other point I was making.
I remember I was chatting on the live stream, and I think I said, that's just weird. when I saw
Oh, that's right. I was describing a situation where I'd gone speaking to people's behavior generally.
Yeah.
And so we're dropping off provisions at a friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
And we're up on their porch, and we're staying 6 feet away because it's, an elder person.
Okay.
And the neighbor's going by, and they're doing this. I mean, they're like 12 feet away from us doing this.
That does look like Dracula.
Yeah, so they were totally pulling a Dracula, which didn't probably come through too well unless you guys got the full slide.
No, I could tell what it was. Yeah, it showed up okay on we were watching it on our TV, our smart TV, so it looked good.
So then on one of the ministers' sites that I'm on, someone posed a question, does anybody feel like it's time to start putting lamb's blood on the lintels? And that's That's where I got that idea. Of course, then you had to go home and check yourself after you did the Dracula thing.
I see. Maybe you could use that blood on the lintels.
You could have.
Yeah, so that we're
This
like the
didn't come-
sacrificial lamb as well.
Yeah, this didn't really come through, and Nancy reckoned not many people knew about the this part of the story. But hell, that's Passover. How can you not?
Right. Well, I think maybe, you know, a lot of people who know the New Testament may not refer back to the Old Testament, even though a lot of the New Testament does refer back to, because it's tying in what Jesus brought as part of a continuation of the story.
Well, and that was the last test of Pharaoh.
Right.
Remember, Yul Brenner's kid even died.
Yeah, as a firstborn.
Yes.
So when I saw this, it just looks like a horror movie to me. So I typed in the live stream, like, can you move to a less bloody image, please? And then we did anyway.
Well, the idea was, you know, and then, so the gag was that all of a sudden people think, oh, you think I can do that? So that was the idea. Anyway, it was a lot. Apparently, I thought it was a lot funnier.
I think so. It's hard to gauge your comedy when you don't have an audience.
I know. And Dr. Maureen says, well, you know, I always laugh at your stuff, but this was definitely a little on the dark side. So.
Well, so the idea in the Old Testament of doing this was how you marked your house to be passed over by the plagues of Egypt.
The angel of death.
The angel of death, which was, you know, how you marked yourself as a person of faith, right?
Right. But I think people are kind of acting like the corona thing is almost like this angel of death that, you know, snaking its way through the lane, looking for this, oh, no, sanitizer, let me go down here.
Yeah, I'm watching TV shows that came out this past week where they were actually filmed months ago, where they go to like restaurants and bars and they're hanging out. And I'm like, oh, no, we can't do that. That's definitely fiction. That's definitely not today.
Right.
It's weird. But yeah.
So it was my intention to, in a humorous way, just to kind of point to the anxieties that a lot of people must be feeling, because it's just so different, and we don't know how long it's going to be. And some people, you know, it's their income. You know, if you're trying to make your way in the gig economy, man, this is like, it was already tough, and now you're getting the legs knocked out from under you. So
yeah. Okay, move to the next slide, because I'm done looking at the bloody doorway. Oh, that's better. Thank you.
This is O'Melveny, which now up there, it's completely green with the latest rain. This was on March 3rd.
Pretty.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that's been going around the internet is how nature has rebounded since all the people just went home and was, you know, mellowed out.
Yeah.
Some of them I found out from a National Geographic article. Some of it was not exactly true, like the pictures of dolphins in the Venice canals, those were actually taken somewhere else. But the pollution over Wuhan and over Italy has dissipated.
So the clean water in the Venice Canal, that was Photoshop?
The clean water is true. The dolphins coming in is not true. It's from somewhere else. And the swans were actually photographed somewhere else as well. So those actually didn't return because they weren't in that area initially. But the water is clean. So that is good.
Well, I did wonder about the swans, because I don't remember swans being an Italian thing. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a National Geographic article on it. But there are different ways. Like you said, this is all green now, the picture you're showing. That's partly just the season change and the rain, but also, you know, nature is, without all the people trampling all over it, is having a reset as well.
Well, and it's a reset also because this is one of the places where the fire ripped through, where you can see some of the evidence of that. So I was just up there this morning. It's nice. Yeah.
Cool. So one of the, going back to like biblical analogies, I was thinking of it, this coronavirus, as more of like Noah's Ark, that instead of washing away everybody, it's creating a reset and a restart in a different way. So that also, you know.
Noah's Ark, like 2 by 2, let's go to the zoo.
Well, if, you know, animals are rebounding and, you know, the dove is flying around finding nature.
Flies with the dove.
It's just one of those thoughts of trying to look for the good in a situation that doesn't feel good is, you know, trying to find the greater meaning and trying to find something positive. But also, we shouldn't do spiritual bypass and pretend it's not happening. We also need to be, you know, with our feet firmly planted in the reality of now, here and now.
Yep.
So I don't want to stray too far into fantasy land.
No, we're not here to play let's pretend, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Because we already have, you know, a leader or two that's doing that. So that's not helpful.
Yeah, exactly. So what else you got on your slides?
Let's see what's up here. Oh,
you went the wrong way. You did that on purpose.
I just thought you know, I mean, you don't get to see pectoral muscles in church every Sunday. So we were talking about faith over fear versus fear over faith. So fear being an acronym for false evidence appearing real, that's one way.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, of course, is not fleece, but a word I can't say in church. Fleece everything and run.
Mm-hmm.
But I got this from Dr. Pat Campbell, who's the minister up in Calgary, Alberta. And she said, you know, we want to face everything and rise.
That is nice.
Yeah. And I think that was hers. So.
All right. You're giving props.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is especially important right now because you could give over to fear, but it always feels like a misuse of energy to me.
Well, fear doesn't heal anything, right?
Yeah, and it actually depletes.
Fear just puts a slather of jive over whatever it is we have to do, whether it's, you know, to make it difficult, even if it's just to make a difficult phone call, even if it's to make a call for somebody who owes you money and you're nervous about doing it, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes these things that we're afraid to do, or it might be, you know, asking someone out for that first date.
There's no dating right now.
Well, not now, there's not. But back in the days. In days of old when men were bold.
Like 10 days ago.
Yeah.
In the olden days.
And yeah. And they would,
before Corona?
They would take a peek inside a Starbucks, decide whether or not they were going to walk in or not. Or vice versa.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Face everything and rise, and choosing faith. Also, you know, was it Friday, I think, was the first day of spring.
Yep.
And I happened to be on Facebook and saw something from the Order of the Sacred Earth, which is one of the organizations that Flourish is connected to. And they were having an online spring equinox.
Is that the toning guy? Is that the guy who does the toning?
The toning?
Yeah, like the sound vibration toning thing.
The Order of the Sacred Earth, you mean?
Yeah, no?
No, that's Matthew Fox.
Okay, never mind.
So Order of the Sacred Earth is an organization, and there's a book written by the theologian Matthew Fox and a couple of younger people who have worked with him who have different backgrounds in spirituality and nature. And so Flourish is actually a pod, they call it, a chapter of Order of the Sacred Earth, among, other things. And there's another chapter at a CSL center in Mission Viejo. And they were doing this online spring equinox celebration. So
Is that with Reverend Sandy? Sandy and her husband? Forget his name.
They are some of the leaders there. It was led by different people.
All right.
And I don't have any of the names or information in front of me, I don't think. But it was, John Odin is one of the associate ministers. But it was Jesse Keeler was the one who led the thing. So because it's about creation, spirituality, and focusing on nature, the faith in nature felt very comforting to me as well, in that to focus on that the seasons are still on track, that the planetary alignment is still as it should be.
There's a normalcy underneath everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That life is still in process.
Yeah.
And that helps.
Well, even the corona thing is life expressing, right?
Yeah.
So it's neither good nor bad,
Right.
nor Chinese or American.
Yeah.
It's just a life form that has mutated that we don't have an answer for.
It's interesting.
Just like dozens of diseases that we, before we even knew what microbes were,
Mm-hmm.
right? Boy, you talk about fear in the face of things.
Yeah.
And that, Mary Baker Eddy, we were talking about these early New Thought teachers. They were really, they really were pioneers with this stuff, because there was so much fear attached to it, and there weren't very many doctors.
Mm-hmm.
So there, folks needed to, you needed to have the village healer, or the town healer that people could go to.
Right.
And so anyway, I don't know how we got off.
So faith is how we got to it. Faith over fear in the unknown, and we're more in the unknown in so many ways than we would normally be, or at least that we think we are. We think we know what life is day to day because we build ourselves a little comfortable routine, and our routines have all been thrown off. So we are reminded that we're actually always floating around in the unknown, and that we have control over very little, and that forces of nature are still bigger than any of us alone.
Yeah. Well, I think this will be the week. This is going to be very telling.
Yeah.
The Spaniards got hit pretty hard, and I don't know that they've leveled off yet.
Mm. And so all we can do is connect to faith and pray. I mean, do our due diligence with washing our hands and keeping our safe distance and all of that. But also prayer is actually the greatest power we have, and connecting to that faith for ourselves and for everybody.
Right.
What other slides you got?
Absolutely. Because ultimately, to desert the truth in our hour of need is to prove that we do not know the truth.
Isn't that a test?
Yes, and that is from a much longer verse out of the Science of Mind textbook. When things look the worst, that supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstructions to the operation of truth. So the idea is that, and this is from the chapter around mental equivalence from the Science of Mind textbook. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go get that.
Okay.
And so say something clever while I go do that.
Oh my gosh, you want me to vamp? All right. Oh, look how sneaky he put up a logo in his place. So these slides are basically about our faith being tested, right? Or anytime there's a challenge, we have the opportunity to choose faith or fear. And sometimes things shake us so deeply to the core, and I've been there, when it makes us question our faith. And that can actually be a good thing, because as Reverend Mike so often says, there are things that we haven't reasoned our way into. And so when everything kind of falls apart, it's a chance for us to look at the pieces and reason our way into what we choose to invest our energy and our thought and our consciousness in. So ultimately, I think this is happening all over the world with, as we question our systems, or as we look into the weaknesses in our social systems, in our communities. And he's back, I think. I don't see your face yet.
There I am.
There you are. So what did you go and get?
I just went to get the Science of Mind textbook.
Ooh, I like that version. I like that cover.
Yeah, this is, I have like 3 or 4 of these. Most of them, the cover wears out. So, but this section came from page 282. So my intention was to have a small Science of Mind lesson and to give people a tool. And I think a lot of folks are very intimidated to do spiritual mind treatment until they've been to a few classes. And most people who come on Sunday have not been to class, or they haven't been to class in a long time. And I know even for myself, I had to take practitioner class a couple times because, well, number one, I didn't come from a tradition where people, you said or you wrote prayers out of a prayer book. So you did not spontaneously pray.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's something that, Protestants did. And certainly some of my Baptist friends, like I can even tell from ministers who come from that Protestant tradition, man, they are just really great at it. And I've had to work at it. And in fact, I've kind of come up with this one little rote thing that I do at the beginning just to get me in. So I'm not sitting there stammering and, because if I think about it, then the editor shows up and then I start judging everything.
Right.
And then, and then you're not praying, you're doing something, now you're just yakking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I like that you showed where that quote was in the Science of Mind text, because you've said before that we can go through the Science of Mind text a little bit each day and work our way through it over the course of a year. And now is a great time to do that, to sit down and, make a little schedule, maybe double up on it, do a couple of chunks a day and dig into that practice, because it's a tool that's available to us that maybe we don't leave time for ourselves to do.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or because we understand the power of our word, we're afraid of saying something wrong, right? Like the spirit is judging every word or whatever, but it just doesn't work that way. In fact, it's really the feeling tone behind the words that gives import to anything. So even if we have, a bunch of flowery, do the best flowery hippie treatment, but, if while we're saying it, we're like, boy, I hope this works. Then you just negated the whole thing, because hope is a subtle illusion and an unconscious compromise, as Holmes would say.
Ooh, hope is a subtle illusion and an unconscious compromise? Is that what you said?
Right. Because
Holmes said.
That's right. Well, Holmes said it, yeah. Because what we're wanting to do is to know a deeper, transcendent truth about any aspect of life.
So hope is like maybe a step towards faith.
Correct.
But it's not the full.
Right. In fact, he even says, hope is good as far as it gets you, and it's certainly better than despair.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. But what we're wanting to do is get to a sense of knowing that there's an infinite power and presence of the divine that's backing our play.
Yes. And that can be challenging for a lot of people, to have faith in the unseen until it's tested. So I can see where hope is a good start, and then step further.
Right, because when you're in this, when you're really in the soup, right? So you lose your job, or you lose your job and you've just bought a house, or maybe a new car and you haven't got used to the payments yet. Or you get a health diagnosis. When things look the worst, the supreme moment to demonstrate to ourselves that there are no obstacles to the truth, that this time has now arrived. And and I don't think we're there yet, but and I'm hoping, I suppose, I'm knowing that there's in the infinite possibilities for good, that we are successfully flattening this curve, because I don't know that, well, of course we don't know because we don't have enough test kits yet, but hopefully we've gotten out ahead of this fast enough. And
and what they're saying is that, or what I've heard anyway, is that that many people may get the virus, but it doesn't necessarily affect all of us as deeply as those who have lower immunity systems and all of that. So we shouldn't see it as a absolute death if
correct.
We get this.
We should be acting as if we haven't. If we act as if we are, and I'm not talking about in our mind, but in our behaviors, if we act as if we are contagious, like when we have, when we have obvious symptoms of a cold, right? We are conscious of not shaking people's hands and sneezing on them, and that whole thing. So that's the way we need to alter our behavior now.
Right.
Because the way that it works is that we can pass it, if we happen to be a carrier, we can pass it on, 1, 2, 3 generations, 3 contact points away from us.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing here. So part of it is staying out of fear, adjusting our behavior appropriately, so that we become very aware that we don't want to infect anyone, and in doing all of these other things to understand that there is this indwelling pattern of perfection within all of us. That is and the portal or the access point to that is our faith and our faith in this power and presence. So
Yeah. So when we can focus on that.
Right, because when Ernest Holmes says there's a power for good in the universe available to everyone and you can use it, that's the power that he's talking about.
And with that power, even if we are looking out for others by keeping ourselves separate and distant and taking care of others, we can also be focusing on faith that our body has the ability to reduce the impact or heal us entirely. I mean, faith has a much better chance of doing that than fear, because fear actually it affects our immunity. It lowers our immunity.
Well, and also the faith that our behaviors, our adjusted behaviors, are having an effect positively. Having the faith that our prayer and meditation work of knowing a healing truth for within our Power of Eight groups, within our center, within Granada Hills, within LA, within the state of California, just radiating out that, that we are lifting others, right? So this idea of to face everything and rise, that we are doing this in a very conscious way.
Yeah.
And in a faithful way and confidently.
Mm-hmm.
Being, knowing that we're playing with infinite power. I mean, that really is the second discovery of fire, if you will.
Yeah.
I've
been kind of playing with the idea of getting through this, and from the other side, looking back on this moment and saying, wow, this was the time that we took the time, we took the opportunity to reconnect with ourselves, to readjust our goals, to reshape our lives. And when we emerged on the other side, we were able to reshape our world in a more positive, conscious way. So,
well, not only that, but I mean, if you consider the possibilities here, there could be a reset in the way we do capitalism, in the way that we do healthcare, in the way that we look after the planet, in the way that we practice taxation.
Yes.
Of
our work schedules and the expectation that people have to go to an office and be away from their children for long periods of time. I mean, I think that's major.
Yeah, it could be a total. Reset. Because the thing is that everybody is going to be so heavily indebted now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And debt is just a mental concept anyway. Because what are we really in debt with? Paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have these mutual agreements that there's no gold behind it, or So it will be an interesting thing to see what happens.
Yes. And it's times like these that also make us look at our values again, like what is really important. My family is important. My health is important. All these things that we sort of set aside for money most of the time in our society. Right. But if your job has sent you home and you're not going there anymore, and a lot of places are putting off payment for different things because everybody's in this together, so if you don't have to worry about that, then where do you put your focus? Where do you put your energy? So it's an opportunity for just a major shift in so many ways. I saw when you were playing with your slides, the bingo. slide of sort of the easy way to remember the steps of prayer.
Yeah, well, this is, I also got this from Pat Campbell, because she and I were talking over the weekend about the Canadian New Thought Conference, where I was going to be one of the presenters.
Aww.
But it's not canceled yet, but it looks like it may be.
When is it supposed to take place?
June 13th.
Okay.
So I think it doesn't seem to be hitting Canada as hard.
Okay.
But, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, I think we're in the beginning. We're just starting in the wave hasn't crested yet, I guess is what I'm saying. So, but anyway, she's the one who gave me this idea of bingo, and they used to teach this in teen camp. Right? So the idea you're in affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment when you remember that that we are there to be with God, versus petitioning to a God up there that's separate, right? And that God is always available, spirit or whatever word you want to use. So be with God, include yourself, and then to name your good. So if you remember, I was speaking to the idea that before we started doing any steps or any of that other thing, to imagine that you were the king or queen of the world, and that you could, your word had authority and agency to it, to what, your wish is my command kind of thing.
Right.
And so what would the world look like if, what Maria Nemeth says, if money were no object and success were guaranteed? Right? Now, kings and queens don't even think about that.
Right.
I want what I want because I want it. Right? So, so it's with that kind of authority, and also without having any strings attached to it. Of course, the king and queen do not concern themselves as to how things will be done, only that they're done. And then, remember, I also had the metaphor of the internet. And, making a purchase on the internet, that the internet doesn't think about whether or not your purchase is good or bad.
Right.
It doesn't, and there's no limit. Unlike a credit card, there's no limit, right? So our availability of potential is not limited by a credit limit, because we live in an infinite field, or a field of infinite possibilities, and that it can only say yes. So anyway.
And then close by giving thanks and saying over and out.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Okay, I'm done. On to the next thing.
So that translates to, and so it is.
And so it
or
is.
amen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And isn't that like a teen, right? Okay, so what's next?
Yeah, but I like the idea of closing it out. Like, we can be praying without ceasing, that every thought is a prayer, and as we move through the day. But when you're in like a focused meditation session and you're really connected, to consciously give thanks and sort of close that moment seems important. Yeah, so that's cool. One of the things when you said about the internet, it occurred to me, the idea of something going viral over the internet.
Yeah.
And how, our languaging has emphasized the power of a virus and how quickly it spreads. And so why our people's consciousnesses or something like that, not understanding when we use the word all the time to mean something spreads kind of like wildfire, to how we act in our personal lives. Like there are still people who aren't really recognizing that we need to be careful about a virus. Like, why have you not put that together? So, and that as humans, the things that we create are how we operate in the world. So the internet is a human creation. It could be seen as a co-creation with spirit, but it is a metaphor for what we know of spirit as well. Like you were just using it, how we create our world. So like, I don't know, it's just another way to look at what we create and come from the perspective of our higher power and be conscious about what we create, because we are creating unconsciously too. And we may not like what we create unconsciously.
Yeah. Oftentimes we don't. But this is the great thing about doing our inner spiritual work on a regular basis, on a daily basis if possible, because we reset our default. So oftentimes when we come to teachings such as this, we come with a bunch of downloaded jive, as you were saying, that we have a lot of things within the way that we operate, that we have paradigms that we may not have reasoned our way into. So, but once we kind of unpack that and look at it and discern, okay, so what resonates with me, what makes sense, what no longer serves me, instead focus on the things that are build forward momentum in my life, and that is kind of the general tone of my consciousness. And even unconsciously,
you have a kind of a raised foundation that you're working from. Then.
Exactly. So then you really do kind of get, after working with it for like a year or two, you're like, gosh, sure seems like things are working out for me. Right? And then a couple more years, I go, God, things always work out for me. Even when I think they're not working out for me, it actually worked out better that I didn't get that one deal that I thought I would, or that one person who I was so sure was the right one for me, and now I have this really great person that I'm with now. Or it freed me up to, take this job in another city, and now I have this whole new life, or, whatever it is. Anyway.
So was that your last slide on your slideshow?
Yep.
All right. We applaud you. We applaud you.
Thanks.
Sure. And I think you had a guest star up on the couch behind you for a minute. While
that's Theo. Theo's having a hard time. He's a conehead right now. So
that's one of the things I've enjoyed about having meetings with people in their homes is I've been able to meet their pets online, virtually. It's cute.
Where, hey.
Oh.
This is Theo.
Hi, Theo.
He was just neutered and he's having a hard time.
Oh, Theo means God, right?
What's that?
Theo means God, like theology.
Yeah. Yes, I know that, but he was actually had a Spanish owner and was named Feo.
Oh.
Which means ugly.
Oh, Feo with an F? F-E-O?
Yeah.
Oh,
look at this face. He's adorable.
Oh, no. Theo is better. He's God.
He's having a hard time.
Oh, puppy.
So he's a foster.
Okay. So
So
if anybody watching would like to
anybody
adopt
watching, look at this fine fellow. He's got a sweet little temperament.
Aw,
Yeah.
very sweet. All right. Well, I think we've done what we can do here today. Any other thoughts?
Say goodbye, Toto. Actually, he does look like Toto now.
It does, yeah. You can experience all the magic of Oz if you adopt Theo.
Yeah.
Is that his cone? You're putting him back in his cone.
He's
It's good for you, Theo. It's how you keep your social distance.
Yeah, from his groin. Okay, I'm gonna need to go right now.
Okay.
Going after it. Okay. Bye. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Bye. And hit stop recording first before you leave the meeting.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
press stop first.
Yeah.